Hi, and welcome back to the video series covering the Registered Disability Savings Plan. We're going to look at some planning issues today. We've already covered money going into the plan and money coming out of the plan. So the first planning issue that I'd like to discuss is around eligibility for the plan. What we're looking for here is somebody who is eligible for the disability tax credit. Now, estimates are that there are about 200,000 people in Canada who would be eligible for the disability tax credit but have never applied. So we're looking for somebody who's eligible for the disability tax credit, somebody who's 59 or younger, because of course mandatory withdrawals start at age 60, although 49 or younger is better because at 49 or younger that's where we have access to the grants and bonds, and somebody who has a permanent disability, something that's likely never to go away. And then we're looking at a few other considerations here. In addition to being eligible for the disability tax credit, now we want to look at how money gets into the plan. That is, where the dollar is actually going to come from. Well, this plan has been around since 2008, and when we start to see the benefits of looking all the way back to 2008, the plan becomes actually quite attractive. So we know the plan was introduced in 2008. Okay, good deal. So what are we going to do with that information? So we know the plan was introduced in 2008. What if we have somebody who hasn't taken advantage of it? This would be very common because there is, I would suggest, still generally pretty poor awareness of the RDSP. So the plan was introduced in 2008. Let's say we have somebody who has decent income themselves, but they have a disabled sibling. We'll start with the disabled sibling, and this disabled sibling has low income. Let's say income somewhere less than $20,000. And this person says, well, I may not always be around to take care of my disabled sibling, or I would like to make sure that they achieve some degree of financial independence at some point. So what we would do here, we would say, okay, it's 2013 today. And what you can actually do is you can catch up on your missed years of grants and bonds for this program. So let's say that this person puts in $4,500 into an RDSP on behalf of their disabled sibling. Now, one of the issues here is that the sibling now owns the RDSP and has control over the plan and can make withdrawals without any restriction. So that's a consideration you have to watch there. So we invest $4,500 into the sibling's RDSP. What's going to happen here is basically for the 2013 year, we would say $1,500 of those withdrawals are going to be considered a contribution for that year, and we're going to get the Canada Disability Savings Grant, and we're going to get the same matching we saw previously. A $1,500 contribution is going to attract, because income is so low here, lower than $80,000. You'll remember roughly $84,000 is the threshold. So Canada Disability Savings Grant is going to kick in here. We're going to get 300% matching on the first 500 and 200% on the next 1,000. We're going to get $3,500. And then what we actually end up doing here is we go back to 2008, and for 2008 we have a further $1,500 that we allocate to that year. We get another $3,500, and then for 2009 we're going to get the same credit here. We're going to get another $1,500 that's considered a contribution for that year. So that's our full $4,500 of contributions used up. and another $3,500 of grants. So in this case, we have put in $4,500. We've generated $10,500 in grants. Our $4,500 has overnight become $15,000 that's now sitting in that disabled siblings registered disability savings plan. Not a bad deal. And there's a little bit more to that as well. If the disabled siblings' income was really this low, they would have also qualified for the bond. And you'll remember the bond doesn't require any contributions. They would get $1,000 of bond per year of eligibility. That would be for 08, 09, 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2013. That is 6 years of bonds. Now our $45,000 has turned into $21,000. Now, why did I use just $10,500 here? That's an excellent question if you're asking it. That's the most arrears grant money you can get in 1 year. So likely what we would do if we have the resources to support it is in 2014 we would put a further $4,500 in, which would allow us to buy back now the 2010 and 2011 years. And then in 2015, you would want to buy back the 2012 year that you haven't yet caught up on. And then you would be all caught up on your grants, keeping in mind that the maximum grant you can receive lifetime is $70,000. Well, we'll have used a fair bit of that opportunity already here. So absolutely worth setting up the plan. In this case, you can see just in that first year a phenomenal return on your investment. Now, I talked about a disabled sibling here, but I would like to remind you that this is applicable to net family income. And this is often overlooked because where this can be quite useful is where you have a disabled child in the house who has reached legal adulthood. So if you have a 19-year-old disabled child, their net family income doesn't include the parent's income anymore. It only includes them, and if they're married, their spouse's income. If they have no spouse, which I would suggest is most likely for a 19-year-old disabled child, then they're probably going to qualify for the grants at this excellent level. Even for a younger child, you're still going to get $1,000 matching on $1,000 contribution if family income is in excess of that top or the total of the bottom two tax brackets. Now, we see here some benefits. So I said you can have a sibling contribute to this plan, you can have a parent or grandparent. The range of people who can contribute to the RDSP is effectively unlimited. There doesn't have to be any kind of relationship. Because the plan beneficiary is also the plan owner, there's no concerns around attribution or anything like that. You just contribute to the plan, and the beneficiary, the owner, all the same party, they own those funds. Okay, now, the next thing that I want to talk about here are some opportunities around the RRSP rollover. We had mentioned this briefly in the second video, and there have been some changes here in the 2012 budget. So what we have here as far as RRSP rollover is we can actually roll up to $200,000 from a parent or grandparent's, from mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, RRSP or RIF, or the related plans, the LIF or LIRA. Into a disabled child or grandchild's RDSP. So this is a pretty good opportunity actually. This would roll over. This means that it's not taxed now in mom, dad, grandma, grandpa's estate. And what happens now is we actually create a sort of different type of RDSP. When this is how the plan is funded, now you can take a disability assistance payment and it does not trigger repayment of grants and bonds. You'll remember that a normal disability assistance payment triggers a repayment of grants and bonds received in the previous 10 years, but if the RDSP is primarily funded this way by this RRSP rollover, that's no longer the case. So a pretty good opportunity there. Now my suggestion is, because the $200,000 does not attract any grants and bonds, I wouldn't necessarily put a full $200,000 in here. I would put, let's say, $175,000 in as an RRSP rollover, keep the other $25,000 out, use the other $25,000 to make regular contributions over the next 20 years, and maximize your grants and bonds that way. Okay, so not necessarily wise to put all $200,000 into one time. You might restrict access to that $70,000 of grant money that way. But that's a great opportunity nonetheless. Now, what's changed in budget 2012 is that, let's say we have a situation here where mom dies and she hasn't really thought about this opportunity, so she leaves her RRSP to dad, which would be very common. What actually can happen here is, within the next year, dad can posthumously say, that is after mom's death, he can say, actually the intent here was for this to go into our disabled child's RDSP. So now dad can, without any kind of consent from mom or whatever the case is, she didn't have to write this in her will, no trust arrangement was required, he can roll that money into their child's RDSP. So this gives a little bit of flexibility that we previously didn't have, and I would suggest this measure is going to see some meaningful assets start to float into the RDSP. Now the last point that I want to raise, and we did talk about this briefly, but we have a range of provincial disability supports programs. Not every province has one, but most provinces have some sort of measure that's designed specifically for disabled, usually adults, to receive a variety of assistance. Often it's income and assistance with health care. Some of the better known programs here, you've got ODSP in Ontario, you've got AISH in Alberta, you've got SED in Saskatchewan, you've got BCEA in BC. What happens here is that the RDSP does not interfere in any way with these plans. That is, you can have assets and income from an RDSP and it does not interfere. For the most part, other sorts of assets can reduce your benefit available under these plans. So there you have some planning considerations around the RDSP. I think it's a fantastic plan. It's just that it's a little bit underused. As awareness gets out there, we should have more use of this plan, and I really think it's good for Canadians on the whole to have access to this. It provides a planning opportunity so that this disabled person will have the opportunity to achieve a degree of financial independence later on in life. Thanks very much for your attention. I hope this has been helpful, and please come back and see us for other videos concerning other financial planning and financial issues in general.